Hey, good morning, making moves, folks. Welcome to Tim and Tim at 10 on Tuesdays. And this week, it's just Tim. So if you tuned in to see Vitali, I hate to disappoint you. But our man Vitali is off in paradise right now. He's out in Hawaii, enjoying an anniversary trip with his wife, well-deserved anniversary trip. So we're going to let him enjoy the time out there. And not to mention, I think it's 4 a.m. So we'll let him sleep
Lucky
in a
guy.
little bit this morning. Um, Actually, you know what? He's probably up walking around right now because your time is so off when you go out there.
Yeah,
Um,
you get some serious jet lag for sure.
yeah. So,
Trying to catch up.
today you guys have probably recognized this face. We've got Nicole on again this morning, and I reached out. She's had some really, really timely posts on LinkedIn recently. I think she's ready to start talking about a recent experience she had. And so, Nicole, welcome. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me this morning. Definitely timely in the post for sure. And yeah, no, just kind of rocking with it.
Yeah, yeah. So, folks, like we all like to be transparent here, right? Like and quite frankly, anybody watching, thank you so much for your feedback because when folks tell us, hey, we appreciate the transparency, we appreciate, you guys not just sharing your wins, but also like, you know, troubling things or challenging moments and things like that. So we like to bring that up, and so this is going to be a weird transition, so don't take it the wrong way. But that's one of the reasons we wanted to chat this morning. Is hey, sometimes looking back on things, you realize there was a moment or something that happened there or whatever that's like a good learning moment, right? A learning opportunity. Um, I have 100% had them. I could go back and share 2 years worth of experiences from 2009, 8, 9 that just absolutely kicked my tail. And I will tell you, like somebody this past week, um, a hard money lender, actually, I was talking to him and he was like, wait, you were doing stuff in 2006? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, how did '08 and '09 go? And I was like, destroyed me, absolutely destroyed me. And he goes,
Yeah.
but you're here. And I was like, yeah. And he just gave me a fist bump. He was like, I love it.
Yeah.
So Nicole, fist bump, because
Thank
you've
you.
you've had a little bit of a challenging, what is it now, like how long has this been going on? About 4 months?
It's I'd say yeah, we probably finished everything in January. So yeah, and now it's May. So yeah, it's been a very long journey of dealing with this extra stuff.
Yeah. So I'm gonna lob a softball out there, but I'll just give everybody just one little brief overview here. So, like Nicole reached out to me in January, and Nicole and I have known each other for a while now. But Nicole calls me in January, and she's like, "Hey, I need to chat with you about something." And we've all had experience with GCs. When you find a good GC, keep them, treat them extremely well. Just be a really good partner. Only advice I can give on that. Um, but every now and then you run across with folks who maybe necessarily aren't doing business the best way or whatever, and um, Nicole hit kind of a bump in the road recently with a project she's had going on, and Nicole, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah. So I will preface this with the fact that you can do everything right, like by the books. Literally, I have a binder that has like step by step on everything that I should be doing for due diligence and everything. I'm very kind of like type A when it comes to that sort of stuff and sticking to to what I know. Again, you can do everything right and still meet someone who is just unethical and just doesn't do business the right way.
100%.
And it's unfortunate when we get in that situation because oftentimes we can blame ourselves for that and feeling that maybe we're the ones that, that failed or that, were the cause of this experience. But sometimes we're not. And it's an experience that we have to reflect on and really just try to push those learning lessons forward so that we're better the next time around. So with this contractor, oftentimes you'll hear people they'll have like a property or something under contract, and they'll go out and they'll have like 3 or 4 contractors go out and bid the work. So of course, that's what I did. I actually had 4 contractors go out. And the mistake that many people will make is going with the cheapest one. And I knew that. And I actually did not end up going with the cheapest one. I went with the one that was the most expensive and the most detailed and the most professional, because I was like, okay, this is, I'm going to be okay. Well, that also does not always work out either. And so, dealing with that and getting, the scope of work done and all that fun stuff, everything went well for the first part of the project until it ended up going way too long. And I think that's where the contractor decided he was going to make up his difference and still make sure that he walked away with a pretty hefty profit. And that's where I got saddled with, an end invoice of, I'd say it was more than double of what it should have been out of nowhere. So that was really exciting to experience.
Yeah, so play that back 1 second, because there's a lot of things in there that quite frankly I do as well, right? Like, don't go with the cheapest guy.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence up front. Get multiple bids. Assess like how they are. Like their presentation. Them. Yeah, vet them. So recommendations, right? Like, look into their background and what they've done.
This guy's with bigger pockets.
Yeah, you did all those things, and still here we are into the project. Which, by the way, one of the things Nicole didn't mention, that I happen to know because we've been talking about this, is all along there were very few, if any, change orders, right?
Yeah, there was change orders of necessity, which were all paid for, but at the end there was absolutely no change orders, no approvals, no nothing of anything.
So all along the way there was no indication that this major, almost double the amount bill was going to show up at the end, and yet there it was. She, and believe me, anybody watching, like, if you know Nicole, she does her homework. She does her homework. Like, the folder type A, I can attest to the type A mentality there. She's one of the best, digging for information for underwriting. She's one of the best I've seen. She comes to the table with tons of information. She clearly digs. And here you are, into the project, and out of nowhere, and guys, this wasn't like a 100-unit property where like $100,000 budget for renovation balloon to like 150, 175, 200 grand, where you can probably absorb that over that size project. Right. This was what was this, Nicole? What size was this?
A single family house, full renovation. And yes. And it ended up being, the final bill should have been closer to about 14,000, and it ended up being just over 30,000. That was just handed to me. And, at the time I was reading Never Split the Difference. So I was using the how questions and trying to dig for more information, kind of inconspicuously in a sense, but based on what I was learning in the book. And that's how I got him to open up and basically express his reasoning for it was COVID, and he just lost track of expenses, and it was just a oh well type of thing. And it's like, well, then what happens to the next person or the person after that? That's like, you're sitting there. Hey, Michael, you're sitting there and you're wondering, like, okay, now what? What do I do for the next project?
Yeah. So Nicole, Mike, hey, Mike, what's going on, man? Hope it's I'm guessing you're out on the West Coast. Quick question. Mike brings up a good point. Was this your first dive into rental properties?
It was my first rehab. So this ended up being a property that we were going to do. I knew it was a fixer upper. I just didn't realize, like, to the extent of what it was. Once we started opening up the walls and kind of tearing things down, that's when I really saw, oh wow, this house did not have, like, the typical, like, good bones. There was a lot of stuff that was, I guess, unsuspected in a sense. But that's the thing, is that now I know, and I can see pictures of houses that fall within that range and tell, oh, there's termite damage here, or you're going to have problems with that window, or this roof does this, or whatever. So it's like, I feel like I learned everything on this one project that
Yeah.
people probably take 10 years to learn on several.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Like, you can't, what seems like it's going to have good bones, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll share with you, we got one going on in South Carolina right now, where we had to do lead and asbestos remediation. Thought it was all done. We go in and we do one of the bathrooms, we pull up some flooring, it's like, oh, more asbestos. We had to do it again. And
Yeah.
then and then we pull back some of the wall, some of the sheetrock on the inside, and it's like, wait a minute, why am I seeing daylight?
Oh no.
And what you
Yeah.
realize all of a sudden is, so there's more water damage there than, and just the joys of dealing with a 150-year-old property, right?
Right.
Because this thing is old. So, but like you're talking about, like you never know until you start opening those walls. But even so, you knew those things going into it. You were paying for them as you go, and then yet still you show up at the end, and the final bill is still double what you expected it to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's Folks, that's not normal.
No.
That's not
Says my
normal.
lawyer. My lawyer also said the same thing. And it was, and that's the thing too, is like I knew I had kept all my ducks in a row and had all of my paper trails. I had everything to prove that this guy was in the wrong. So it would have been probably a pretty easy case for me to take, up to the higher authorities and, present it and probably win. But then
Yeah,
you have to think about it too. And it's like, you're trying to scale your business, you're trying to grow, you're trying to continue on and improve other homes and help other people. And how do you do that when you've got this like big cloud over your head dealing with with a lawsuit and a guy who clearly, if people are willing to do something like that, then they're willing to fight it to the T. And it's like, for what? Right? You
yeah,
have to think of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
um yeah.
And that's, we always talk about opportunity cost and energy and scaling your business and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I think you're touching on some of that. And you and I have talked about this recently because I've been going through something as well where I'm just kind of like, it's time to just turn it loose, right?
Yeah.
And so, because I'm sure there's people sitting here watching, they're like, why didn't you just sue him? Just sue him, go after him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, can you talk about, like, at what point did you kind of decide? Because we originally, when we talked, we were like, all right, let's get a lawyer involved.
Hmm.
But at what point did you kind of just say, you know what, I'm calling it. I'm calling it because I have bigger goals in mind, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I'd say, so obviously, we ended up getting a good lawyer and stuff during this. Actually came to some terms with a settlement agreement so that we could just move forward. So both sides had agreed, and we were just gonna go forward with like this kind of like payment plan, like one amount up front and then payment plan going forward until I could pay off the difference. And so we were both in agreement on that. And it wasn't until he just ghosted. Like this contractor just stopped answering phone calls. He stopped emailing. He wasn't even contacting his own lawyer. His lawyer, when our lawyer ended up contacting his, and I was presenting this information when this guy showed up at my house, like all of these things, that it was just like he was doing all that he could to try to intimidate and deter me. And I'm just not that. I don't go down easy. I guess you could say it that way. I'm not one that will shy away from a fight if I know that this is, I'm in the right. But I thought about it and I was like, if this guy's going to throw curveballs like that and just say, hey, like completely ghost and say, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's like, who am I fighting with? Am I fighting with a 2-year-old kid over candy that he wants? And it's like, it's unreasonable to try to argue with like little kids that like want something. So when I knew that, and I'd already spent money on the settlement agreement and all of these other things, the lawyer time, it was like, now I'm just wasting money because this guy really is just not right, like up there mentally.
right.
So once I realized that, I was like, forget it. I'm just going to figure out a way to pay it. I'm just going to have to get super creative. And thank goodness my husband, Justin, was on board and very supportive of me in having to come out of pocket all this extra money, because he easily could have been like, no, just fight him. And then I would have been in a corner like, what? I don't want to, but so it takes having someone else that's like outside as well, that's kind of giving you that insight, that kind of like rub on your shoulders, like, don't worry, like, you got this. Whatever way you decide is what's right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think it's real easy to get sucked into this. Like, I'm going after this guy, right? Like, I'm going after him. My my dukes are up. I'm ready to fight, right?
Yeah.
And but what we all forget, and I'm way guilty of this, because backed into a corner, I'm gonna scrap and claw, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I am.
Hmm.
And it's real easy to get clouded and be like, no, I'm going after him. Forget everything else. I'm
Yeah.
going after this guy. But that's the key, right? Forget everything else, because when you go after him like that, you will forget everything else. And and the next thing you know, 6 months down the road, how much lawyer fees you've racked up, and
Yeah.
all the other opportunities you've just let go because you've put so much energy into this thing.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and I, and I think that's kind of the conversation you and I had. What, about probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I guess. I kind of remember I was sitting in a car. I just got into Colombia, and you and I were talking,
Hmm.
and you were just kind of like, I think I'm just ready to move on.
Yeah. That was after a good few months, a good few months of giving the fight and just trying to, honestly, I think at that point I was also trying to wrap my head around how someone could do that. Because
Yeah,
I'm just, when you're dealing with with people, especially in business, and and you're an ethical person, you can't fathom other people acting any other way than you would treat
right,
them, right?
right.
So it took me a good few months to really figure out and realize, like, okay, yeah, this is a really crappy situation. And as I talked more about it, I saw how common this really was. And I was like, okay, well, I guess, it made me feel a little bit better to know that I wasn't the only one that's out there that's experiencing this issue. And that's really too why I wanted to share and be transparent with other people, because we watch the shows, right? I think we've talked about this before on like HGTV, and they talk about the flips and like, oh, like nothing bad happens, or it's like a super minor, like, or they make something like, oh, we found mold in the tub, but it's fine, we'll just go ahead and like do whatever. And you look at it, you're like, that's not realistic. You would have had to like
No,
pull that whole tub up to see if there was like mold underneath there, and like how much over budget would you have gone. So it's I feel it's important for us to be able to share the struggles and the parts of it that aren't so pretty, so that when people do go through that, they're not in shock or like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. No, you didn't
yeah.
do anything wrong. Like, sometimes they
I
don't.
think you're hitting on it too, because I would love, I chuckle at the HGTV stuff, and I can remember back when, like, I would watch some of that, and I'm like, oh, this is great, and then you do a few, and you're like, you guys are out of your mind. Like,
Yeah.
this is so this is not reality TV. This is like fantasy land that you're pushing
Yeah.
here. And I mean, there's some good pieces. Like, it's cool to sit there and watch it and get ideas for, like, the way you might decorate something,
Hmm.
like, obviously people did that because how much shiplap did we see all around the world, when
Yeah.
what's their Magnolia, what was their name,
Yeah. Joanna and Chip Gaines,
Chip,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
when they took off, I mean, I think it was shiplap everything. Even my wife, when we were redoing our bathroom, she's like, I want some shiplap.
I have shiplap in my garage, I'm not gonna lie.
It's cute. I like it. And I do have it in my bathroom. It ended up there. Um, but I mean, it's good for that kind of stuff, but it is not rooted in reality, right?
No,
And
far from it.
like what you're talking about with the GC, that's reality. It's going to happen, folks. If you do this long enough, it's going to happen. You're going to run across that guy. I
Mhm.
promise you. I've run across plenty of them. Even in my own, like, house projects, I can't tell you. Like, we could go into the 4 months I spent having a screened-in porch put on my house, and the horrible decision I made on which company to go with, um, and the fact that I basically almost had to quit my job just to manage a project that I had hired a full service GC for. Um, but hey, the good news was that I had done enough of that stuff that I knew how to manage it. right? Like, and Nicole, you had enough of a background and a go get it attitude that you were able to work through it and manage it, right?
Right.
And you came through it. Property's done. You got it. How's it doing right now?
It's good. Yeah, we've got, a tenant in there that's paying great rent actually because the property took so long to go through the full cycle of renovations and stuff. The rent actually ended up going up in the entire area. So at that time, so I was like, "Oh, well, that's probably the only, plus that happened for this." But yeah, I got the property and right now we're just working on that final stage of doing the cash out refi and closing, stabilizing that up and on to the next. So I'm
But
glad looking back at it. I'm like, oh, that was quite the journey. But in the end, when you're done, it doesn't seem as bad.
yeah, and see, folks, that's why I did the fist bump early on because like that is so amazing, right? There are so many people out there who, quite frankly, they'll just quit. Like they would have come across this and they would have quit. That would have been it. That would have been the only one they did. And they would have maybe not even gotten to the point you just got to where you're like, yeah, it cost me more, but guess what? Now today, I got a cash flowing property that I own. It's my asset. I own it. I'm getting ready to cash out, refi it, and on to the next, right? Like on
Yeah.
to the next one. And so on the next one, like what would you say to folks? Like what were some of your lessons learned and what are you going to do different, moving forward?
Yeah. So definitely lessons learned. I'd say so. The biggest lesson is definitely understanding that there's people that are out there that are going to do what's in their best interests. So you have to protect yourself at all times. Though what I would do differently is definitely going through people that I know that can give me references for people that they have used and still currently use. So the builder that I'll be going forward with on my next development project, on some land and stuff that we've got, he's actually a builder for one of my good friends. And the builder was very transparent with me. And the reason why he became a builder was because he got screwed over so many times by contractors that he finally threw his hands up and said, forget it. I'm just going to figure out and learn how to do this myself. So he's an investor. He understands the numbers and how we look at things. He understands, that when we've got tenants and in place, or we're doing like short-term rentals, you need specific materials that are going to hold up against like people beating up your place, essentially. So definitely, I'm definitely going to be doing that. So the references of people that actually are being used. I would also say building in a larger contingency. So I had in there, I think it was like between 7 and 10%. I personally would do more next time just because just for safety reasons and have more money in reserves. That was like the one mistake that I made was I had money because I knew I was like, okay, I've got a hard money loan out on this. I'm going to cover this whole rehab and I'll be able to just come out of pocket the extra few $1,000s in case I go over. Well, that wasn't the case. And it was a lot more than that. So I would say going forward, I'm going to have more in reserves to just kind of give myself that peace of mind.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that you need when going through these projects, especially large ones, is not to stress about the things that you could have controlled. And you can control the amount of reserves that you have. So that's one thing another thing I would do.
Yeah, yeah, and I love it. And again, folks, I can't stress enough like this whole move forward piece, right? Like it's easy to quit, right?
Yeah.
One of the things you take from one of the groups that's notorious for this is SEAL teams, right? Their mantra is work the problem, work the problem, work the problem, and that's exactly what you did, right? You basically just work the problem, work the problem, work the next problem, come out on the other side, cash flowing rental property. Uh, you're gonna burr it and pull some money out and go on to the next thing. And so do you think you're gonna do? Are you rolling this into the land development you're doing, or are you thinking you're gonna go try to do something else with it?
So I'll probably roll a little bit into that land development. Actually, funny enough, the power of real estate, the lot value increased so substantially that I'm probably not even going to have to bring any cash to the deal because I'll just have the lot that's already paid off. And so that's also the power of thinking ahead, right? So I'll probably do that. I'll bring a little bit into that for like permits and stuff, because I know that that will be kind of an upfront charge that I have to come out of pocket for.
Yeah.
But then a piece of it's going to go towards building up the account for this GC issue that I had to come out of pocket and pay for. So in the grand scheme of things, to me it was quite a bit of money starting out and it being like my first major project. But I know in the end, it's like just going to be like pennies on the dollar, and I'm going to look back and laugh at why I was so stressed about it.
Nah, in the moment, right? Like in the moment, it's everything.
Yeah, it is.
In the moment, it's everything, and and I can definitely relate to that. Every now and then, if I ever showed you on a balance sheet what 2008 and 9 and cost me, kind of like raise an eyebrow. Um, but today looking back on it, I chuckle about it. Because I mean, what the hell am I going to do? You just laugh about it, right? You're just like,
Right.
boy, that was an expensive lesson, right? Like, I
That's
could have
all you
paid.
can do. That's all you can do going forward. All like you can laugh about it and be like, ah, okay, that sucked. Like, but now I know what I'm gonna do different next time. Or you could be like, man, like so mad at yourself. And it's like, but if you're gonna continue to be angry at yourself, it only blocks you from future progress. So it's like, I should probably just chalk it up to that was just a loss and
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what it is.
I'm with you. I mean, I could have had fun at a couple of different universities for 4 years for what that one cost, and but at the same time, kind of like that hard money guy, that investor and hard money lender that I was talking to over the week. His whole fist bump was because, dude, like I applaud the fact that you were here before 2008 and you're still here now. Because I will be honest with you guys, there's not many of us. In fact, one of my mentors, we were sitting at breakfast a couple of months ago in Houston, when we were down in Houston,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Does anybody know anybody that was doing this stuff back in 2006?" And like I can count on one hand the guys I know.
Yeah.
And it's true because you do this long enough, there's going to be ups and downs, and it's going to kick you in the butt a few times.
Right.
The lesson though is take a lesson from someone like Nicole. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to quit, or are you going to pick yourself up? You're going to learn from it. You're going to apply that moving forward, and just get a little bit better on the next one.
Yeah.
And like you said, you will. Like you're already starting to. We just chuckled about it now. Like you're going to look back and chuckle.
I could laugh about it now. A couple months ago, I was a different story.
Oh, I was angry for you. Like I was annoyed at the guy for you because
I was so
because
upset. Oh my gosh.
because we can all relate to that, right? Like we all have that sub or that GC or some sort of contractor in some way, shape, or form has tried to take advantage of whatever we're doing with them. It
Yeah.
happens. It will absolutely happen. No matter what you do, it will happen.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just how you handle it. Work the
yeah.
problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's another lesson too, is or at least for people that are, trying to venture out into the entrepreneur world as well, is like you don't have to know everything. You just have to start, and you start going and you figure it out as you go along. And that's kind of a piece of it as well. And I think that that's what prevents a lot of people from taking action too, is they think that the whole plan has to be in front of them. Well, the whole plan wasn't in front of me. For, of course, the scope of work was, but the entirety of a project and whatnot isn't always going to be fully known,
Yeah.
especially on these little these smaller ones and stuff. So you take it for what it is and you just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, if one takeaway I would have from this is, asking the question how is good and everything, but at some point you gotta pivot to the who, right? Um,
Yes.
and that's when you can truly start to scale, right? Is when you start to look more at like, who can I get to do this for me? Who can I get to help me with this? And there's I think you've heard us mention it a few times. There's a great book out there, Who Not How. If you haven't read it, please read it, folks. It will
Love that
change your
book.
mindset. It will open up ideas and doors to you. Would you love that book?
Yeah, I absolutely love that book. That's actually one of the main reasons why I just said forget it and I left everything to my lawyer, because I was like,
Yeah,
I already know I'm not the right person for this. I'm going to let someone who's supposed to be in this role and good at what they do, I'm going to let them take over, And that's part of building your team and scaling, is to find the right people to fit into those boxes that you need them for. So awesome book.
Yeah. That's, when I was early on in my W-2 career, I had a great boss. In fact, I was still working for him here recently when I left my W-2 about a month ago. And he was one of the first guys that ever said to me, this was back in 2002. He was one of the first guys that ever said to me, he was like, I was managing a team, and he was like, manage to their strengths, manage to their strengths. And, I'd always kind of been like, no, I got to figure out their weaknesses and how to make them better. And he was like, focus on their strengths, bring in other people where they fall short, bring in other people to make up those shortcomings. That's how you build a team, right? Like you don't ask a quarterback to block defensive linemen, right? So build a team. And football analogies.
I know. Right? I was like, you already know. My head was like, yeah, like going.
Folks, in case you don't know, like Nicole and I tend to throw out sports analogies a lot. Nicole's not the biggest in some of those sports.
I literally don't, like, you can tell me the Herschel Walker or like whoever player, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, Tim, but you throw out like football, you throw out baseball, and I'm like, I can't keep up. And then Vitaly the other day was talking about the boat, and he was like, yeah, it's like a 4,000, and I was like, is it a big boat or a little boat? Does it go fast?
Does it float?
I was like, guys, you know me, come on.
Yeah, I like boats. I like being on the water, but I'm a little bit with you. Like I know enough about them to maybe own one, but I don't kind of geek out on them. Vitaly loves them, man. He knows them inside and out. He knows them inside out. Well, I tell you what, get ready for it, because I think you've heard me mention it before. I have this concept called stacking. It's how I analyze like all my properties, and I show my cash flow based off all my properties. And in the whole stacking concept, I talk about base hits and doubles and singles and home runs. And so get ready, because we're going to talk about that in one of our monthly calls coming up with making moves. So.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'm gonna have to take notes for sure, or like record somehow. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm learning a lot of sports through your random analogies. They're not random; like they make sense. It's just I'm not up to speed on all the old sports stuff. So I'll get there.
Well, this will be a good visual, because there's a nice spreadsheet. It has them all, and I'll show you what a single looks like versus a home run. So.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
and folks, a little heads up. Nicole and I, before this call, we were talking about a home run. We got a deal coming that Nicole's going to work with us on, and if it's not a home run, it's at least a triple. So
I'm excited for it. I'm so excited. I love working with you guys, and we've had some amazing projects in the past, and yeah, I'm always thankful for the opportunity to work with you guys. So excited for it.
All right. Ready. All right, well, guys, we are up on time, and let everybody get back to making some moves and getting some good stuff done. So, Nicole, I appreciate you coming on. I know it was kind of last minute, so thanks for jumping on this morning.
Yeah,
and
sure. Always.
We'll just send out good vibes and maybe let Vitaly know we're just a little bit jealous of him, because I can only imagine what that view looks like this morning. So,
right, he'll have to take us next time. I'm sure his wife would love that.
Yeah, maybe I can convince him to jump on for a second and like do a shot of what's behind him.
Yeah.
So, but all right, guys, have a great week. Nicole, thank you very much, and we'll all see you soon. Take care.
Absolutely. See you guys.
Bye.